Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns for episode 9 and our final episode, wrapping up the NL and AL East predictions and season preview. My name is Tyler. Joining me today, as always, John, Will, and Bobby, who should have more input this week than he has in past with the Phillies in this episode. We will see
Hold
him
on,
and his
Ty,
beautiful
Ty,
face
Ty.
at some
Before we
point.
get into it,
Yes,
before we get into it,
yes.
you want to restate that opening? The final episode, the final
Well,
one. We just got here.
the final episode of our season recaps. Let me put that out there. We will be
Recap. It hasn't happened yet.
preview. I signed a I signed a 5-episode contract. I don't know what's going on here. Uh, we
You
are
signed up
going
for the
Solo.
preseason
to
Is
only.
that what this is? I'm going solo now.
yes. We
Solo-man show?
we
Breaking up the
well,
band.
I mean, look, I had to be dragged onto the. No, I'm just kidding. We
Kicking and screaming.
look,
Kicking and
you
screaming.
know, this could have been a thing last year, but some things happened, and I don't know, man. I signed a very interesting contract to make sure that I didn't have to do this for more than like 4 weeks. Regardless, all that being said, let's move on. Let's go to our preview, our predictions, and our overview of the season for the NL. We will start with the NL East. We will start from the bottom and go to the top. We will start with the Nationals, who went 71-91 in 2023. They have a lot of returning pieces. They also added some veteran pieces. And look, I still think the Nationals are going to have a tough time in this division. But in my opinion, I think they did make some improvements, and they are looking up in certain aspects. As always, Will, I will go to you first. What are your thoughts on the Nationals going into the season?
I have to juggle my notes around right now, so I had us starting with the Red Sox. So thanks a lot there.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
seriously.
Are we going AL? Oh, that was
Nope,
my
we're going
too late.
NL
We
now,
started.
boys.
We're going
That's on
NL
me.
now.
NL now. It's too late.
That's on me.
Yeah, it
The
is.
Nationals, to me, they made additions. They had brought in Joey Gallo, Eddie Rosario, Nick Senzel. So they have some veteran presence in that lineup now. However, the future of this team is purely on how well their pitching prospects transition, adapt to the big leagues. Josiah Gray took a big step last year, and Mackenzie Gore continues to look good. I have no faith in this lineup whatsoever, though, so I don't really see them doing much, and I'm kind of mixed on who they did bring in.
Well, I think that, as you said, they add some veteran pieces to this team, and while I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, again, they are playing in a pretty difficult division. I do like the additions of Gallo, Rosario, and at least to me, it shows that they're trying to put something together, or at least maybe give a guiding hand to these young guys that they have on the roster. We have already talked about some teams that are kind of unwilling to do that, but in my opinion, I think you had some guys like, you have CJ Abrams there, obviously a young player. Keibert Ruiz is starting to get up there a little bit, but he was the top prospect at one point. Luis Garcia, so at least you have something around it. The pitching for them does scare me a lot. That's something that they're going to have to address sometime in the next few seasons. But for me, I think,
in a bad way for them.
yeah, scare for a bad way. I mean, they have Patrick Corbin. He's been there for a while, but outside of
This
that,
is his last year, I believe.
Gray,
Is that correct?
I think
Corbin's last year,
because he's. I'll look.
or
that
does
up
he
real
have
quick.
one more year after this? Because it was I think it was a 6-year deal. I thought it started in 19 when they won the World Series, so that would mean this year would be the last year, I believe.
I believe you are correct. I will double check you on that, but yeah, I mean, Mackenzie Gore at one point is a top prospect. He really hasn't panned out to what people thought he was going to be, and yes, his last year is after the season, Patrick Corbin. So I think at some point they will have to address that, but for now, again, in a tough division, I don't see them doing too much. But John, I'll go to you now.
Does anybody know how much the Nationals are still paying Strasburg to not play?
35, 40 million.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they ain't gonna be climbing out of that hole anytime soon. I'm looking at their pitching rotation, and no one is projected to have an under 3 ERA throughout all of their pitchers. So I'm gonna go
Not a
with
surprise.
yeah. I mean, this team, it's I don't even think there's anything good to say really about this team. I mean, you had said at the start here that it was going to be looking up uh, the Nationals with everything. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Them looking up at the rest of the division here. So it there's nothing here that really strikes me as the Nationals really making a splash here. Honestly,
You were loading that joke up, weren't you? Look, I think that
I am
last
prepared.
year
Yes,
last year they go 71 and 91, and I think it could have been worse. I think at one point, I'm trying to. I think they had a late season surge. I could be wrong about that, but to get up to 71, okay, that's respectable. I do think they get a couple more wins this year and make the division, like the bottom of this division, a little bit more competitive. But I do still see them at the bottom of this
I
division.
disagree with you. I have them regressing to honestly to less than 65 wins.
And
Fair.
I'm actually with
look,
John on this one.
Well, I guess you can look at it in two ways. Like the division above them, the other four teams have gotten better year after year, and
all they've
while
done
they
is
haven't,
gotten worse.
I don't think they've gotten worse. I think like this year again, I think they will get some good numbers out of like excuse me. I'm like already losing my voice in this episode.
Well, it's because you started with the Nationals instead of the Red Sox.
This is true.
Doesn't follow the run of show, messes us
That
up,
he
losing
made,
his
by the way.
voice.
That
What
he
kind
made.
of host are you?
The
I
run of
think
show
this
that he
year-
made.
I think that
His
Jesse
last
Winker
episode.
could have a little bit of impact. I think Eddie Rosario, Joey Gallo. Like I said, I don't think that again the team's going to be all that great, but I do have them having a few more wins. Let's move on over to the. Let me make sure I don't mess this one up. The Mets. The Mets
You
coming
can't.
off of.
Jesus.
Am I going to get interrupted all episode? Jesus Christ, boys! 75
Yes.
wins
Glad
for
you
the
picked the
Mets
right
last
New York
year.
team.
87 losses. They missed the playoffs last year. Already not so great news going into this season with Kodai Senga having an injury. I don't know if there's an update on that. I want to say they said like late April, early May, but I could be wrong about that. Not great on that front, but this is a team that's returning a lot of players that have been there for a while, and I don't know. I kind of have a decent feeling about the Mets this year. Will, do you agree or disagree with that?
Huh. What's
As
your
a
heart
Phillies
say? What's
fan,
your
I
head
have to
say?
say I hate the Mets. My heart's
Fair
sorry.
enough.
So you got a
I mean,
caveat.
both are
Muck the
The
fence.
exactly. So, offensively, the team is almost identical to the team they had last year. Pitching wise, I actually kind of like some of the additions they made to add a lot of depth in the rotation. They brought in Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, Luis Severino. They should be having a full year out of Jose Quintana this year, which is nice. But I do think the injury to Kodai Senga does hurt the rotation a lot because he was a clear number one for them. Sure, they get Edwin Diaz now to help round out the games, which was their big problem entering the season last year. So the Mets are going to be fighting for a wild card spot, but they need Senga back as soon as possible if they hope to really kind of catch up with a team like the Padres, who just came out and got Cease. So their pitching is a lot better there than San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate the starting rotation, though. Obviously, it looks a lot better if Senga is in that one spot, but you have a lot of guys that, could give you decent numbers. I think their offense returning, looks good. I think, Lindor still being there, Alonso. Jeff McNeil, a little bit of a down year last year. See if he can bounce back, but I just think I like this team. Bader getting for the outfield as well. I like that addition. So I don't know. Again, it's so tough because this division is so top heavy that the Braves and the Phillies really are going to be pounding on these other three teams, and it is going to be tough for them. But I do think the Mets have an improved season this year, and we will see. If they can take that and run with a wild card. But as you said, I mean, teams like the Padres who are adding to the rotation and such makes it a little bit harder. John, what are your thoughts on this 2024 Mets team?
I think the 2024 Mets are going to have the same season that they did last year. It's going to be high expectations, but be disappointing. I would consider them a 500 team. I think what's really going to set them apart and really going to set them up for success or failure is their bullpen, and the back end really of their rotation. So how much is their pitching going to hold them down here? Their ERA projections are pretty average, honestly. But I'm looking at the home runs per 9 innings that each pitcher gives up, and those numbers are relatively like mid to high. So that's not something that you really like to see here. Everyone is at least one home run for uh, excuse me, at least one home run, if not more. And then the strikeouts per 9, they're relatively mid to low. And then their strikeouts to base on balls percentage is not what you would like to see here. So honestly, I think what's going to really affect the Mets is their pitching. Their hitting, their offense is basically, it hasn't really changed all that much. What's really held them back is honestly injuries over the past couple of years. But when you look at the Mets in general, they should be fine as far as hitting is concerned. So, I mean, I'm looking at all their stats, I'm looking at their numbers, and I think that the Mets really, I think they're a mid team. I really do. I don't think they can compete for this division in the long run, especially not with Philly and Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I think those two teams are going to be obviously the favorites again. The Mets, though, again, I think are interesting. They were top 10 in home runs last year as a team, but like bottom 5, I believe, in batting average. So,
well, that's because they're swinging for the fences rather than trying to get home runs, and that goes with their philosophy here, and that's pretty typical of Buck Showalter teams to as well, is live and die by the long ball. So with the new manager, it's that philosophy could change on that, and that could affect that. But in terms of with the Mets, they do have a lot of power hitters. They have, they still have Lindor. They still have Pete Alonso. So you have these big boppers here, but the question is how are they going to do? Are they going to be consistent? And it isn't. That's typically not the case when it comes to the Mets. Like I said, mid is the best way to describe the Mets.
Yeah, again, well, a lot of like their team stats kind of are what you see in like Pete Alonso, like a guy that has a lot of home runs and a low average or a lower average. But again,
we know
I
what
think,
he can do.
Yeah, I mean,
guys in the home run derby every year for a reason.
Yeah, I will say he is very entertaining to watch. Like he goes hard, but he's pretty fun to watch in the home run derby. But I mean, again, that team, they're getting a lot of returning pieces, and I think I hope for their sake that Senga isn't out for longer than May, because I think if he gets in their lineup, they have a legit shot to be a wild card team. But obviously losing your ace is not great. And while their other 5 pitchers are better than what they had last year, it's still obviously a big loss. Let's move over to the Marlins, who made the playoffs last year as a wild card team, and they are having lots and lots of injury concerns already, particular to the starting pitching, which really is concerning. Well, what do you think about this Marlins team?
The Marlins were never an offensive first team. Sure, they had Jorge Soler in their lineup last year and added Josh Bell and Jake Berger to go alongside him, and that's partially what helped propel them into the playoffs late in the season. But they live and die by their young starting rotation. Last year, behind Alcantara, they had Luzardo, Braxton Garrett, Edward Cabrera, Yuri Perez, and Trevor Rogers was in and out of the rotation and the bullpen. So they have a lot of nice up-and-coming pitchers with a lot of great potential. And now this year, they are starting with potentially 4 of those guys on the injured list. Alcantara is out for the season with Tommy John. I believe it's Yuri Perez or it's Cabrera. One of them has, I believe it's an elbow situation. It's Yuri Perez who has the elbow injury, and that always raises questions about whether that requires Tommy John. Cabrera and Garrett are shoulder issues. So quickly, that Marlins rotation that was a strength is now a huge question mark with all the depth and young talent gone, and they've done little to no additions to the team entering this year. That could be because they were transitioning between GMs. But I have a lot of questions about what the mindset was with this Marlins team going into the season. Because, yeah, you won, I believe, 84 games last year. You were the second wild card spot. You were probably just getting a few extra pieces offensively, maybe in the bullpen to help push them even higher in the win total column. And now they're going to struggle mightily if this pitching staff is hurt for a big chunk of the season.
Well, it's also not good when I believe I forget who it was, if it was their GM or whoever, but somebody on the Marlins to come out and they're like, literally all options are on the table for opening day with who's going to start because, yeah, they do have so many people out right now. And it's as Will said. I mean, this is a team that is going to have to heavily rely on pitching, and when you're starting the year with all these injuries, obviously you're going to expect some throughout the season as well. It's just not great. They bring in Tim Anderson offensively, but other than that, really didn't add anybody. And you're losing Soler, Garrett Cooper, Stallings, Wendell, and Gurriel. So I think more than anything, like I do think this lineup is capable, but they don't have the depth that they did last year, which I think is going to hurt them. Excuse me. And obviously, Luis Arraez last year was insane. Does he do that again for them this year? We'll have to see. But I do have my concerns about the Marlins. John, agree or disagree on what me and Will have said so far?
Yeah, I think that's pretty honestly hitting the nail on the head there. I think that if you want to go in comparison to the rest of their division, I think that definitely the Marlins are, I think they're above the Mets and the Nationals in terms of potential here. But I mean, honestly, I think that when it comes down to it, they didn't do much to really bolster their team. They didn't do much to really help themselves, and injuries are already affecting them. I mean, granted, it's March here, but you got to look at guys. You got to look at their success. Are they going to have success here? What is their track record of success? And you signed Michael Givens. You signed Tim Anderson. Honestly, that's the guy that I would be looking to watch if I was a Marlins fan. Is Tim Anderson? Who are you going to get? Are you going to get the latter end of Chicago run with Tim Anderson, or are you going to get the early end of Chicago run with Tim Anderson? So I am curious as to who's going to show up on that front. When it comes down to it, the Marlins, I don't think can really. I don't think they really help themselves here. I just don't. I don't see them really, giving themselves much confidence. As you said, they had a bit of a regime change here with a new GM. So, when it comes down to it, the Marlins either need to leap or get off the pot in terms of, are they going to be competitive? I think they lucked into that wild card spot they got last year. I don't think that it really, I don't see them as a wild card team this year. Honestly, I see them as they could be a below 500 team. I don't think they really help themselves.
I
mean,
think the
also,
Marlins are just hurt way too much by the injury bug. I believe they could have been a playoff team if they had started the season with just looking at, all right, we don't have Alcantara, but we have everyone else, because they played a lot of last year with Alcantara not at his best. His ERA was in the upper fours, and I believe the first half of the season, or for at least first couple months, he really was not the Alcantara from the year before. But now that you're taking out a lot of the young talent that was looking really good for potentially long periods of time, that is going to be what takes them out of the wild card race. If they are able to keep or get Garrett and maybe Cabrera back before April's out, they have a chance to stay afloat for the rest of the season. But they need that pitching staff to help with the offense. The offense is not going to give them much in the way of runs per game.
I don't think it is either, but at the same time, I am curious as to what Tim Anderson can bring to that team. I don't
Well,
think
sure.
they can bring. I don't think he's going to bring much, but I think that if they do get a good Tim Anderson, maybe he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder because this guy was not playing like he even cared towards the latter half or towards the latter end of Chicago. So, toward his Chicago run, I should say. So the question is is he going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder? Is he going to be an impact player that he was projected to be? I don't think he will, but we'll see.
Well, they're an interesting case too because they were ranked number 4 in batting average last year, but a lot of that has to do with Rise batted 354, and then their numbers also got brought up by guys who just didn't have a lot of at bats as well. Like Xavier Edwards batted 295, but only in 84 plate appearances. And it's a team that doesn't have a lot of pop. Also, the other thing with them is, okay, their starting pitching has injury questions now. Well, how's your bullpen? And there's just a lot of question marks there. They were bottom 10 in team ERA last year out of the bullpen. So, man, it kind of sucks for the Marlins because it was really looking up for them last year. Obviously, making the playoffs and, okay, how can we build on this? But just not making the additions that are going to really help them. And then obviously losing a guy like Soler is big as well because that was a big bat in your lineup. And again, I think more importantly than anything, these injuries at pitcher, when you already have, your ace out for the year, that really, really hurts. So we will see what happens with the Marlins. But, as you said, wild card team last year, 84 and 78. It's going to be tough to reach that mark again, I think, this year. Let's move on to the 90 and 72 Phillies from 20 and 23. They are returning a lot of their core, of course, and didn't really lose much as well. Didn't really add too much either. But again, returning a lot of that core. This is where things will get in depth, as Will is a huge Phillies fan. And what's your outlook on this team, especially compared to how they were last year?
So the Phillies clearly believe that they have already what it takes to be a World Series team. Entering the postseason last year in the National League Championship Series, I don't think anyone would have betted against them at that point because they looked like the favorites with the Dodgers and the Braves out of the competition, coming off of the cusp of losing in the World Series in 22. And I do like the fact that they are keeping this core together. They're a team that definitely seems to have a lot of fun when they played last year in 23. They have great camaraderie. The fact that they can band behind the city with the Dancing on My Own song is something that is always fun to rewatch over and over again. The club has definitely added a big utility bat, which is something not often talked about in Whit Merrifield, because Merrifield can play anywhere. And I saw a stat shortly after the Phillies signed Merrifield that since I believe it was 2021, could have been 2020, that the Phillies now have 2 of the top 3 hitters among hits over the last 3-4 years, whatever that makes it. Most hits in the last since 2020. for 2021 was Freddie Freeman. Then second was Merrifield. And then third was Trey Turner. And the big thing for the Phillies was last year when they lost the National League Championship Series, the person that made the final out was Jake Cave. Not the ideal guy you would want coming off of the bench in your last chance to potentially get into the World Series. Now you have someone like Whit Merrifield, and Whit Merrifield can give you a 280, 290 average on a good year. If Johan Rojas, who looks like to be the everyday center fielder for the Phillies, just really can't do it hitting wise, even though his defense is tremendous, Merrifield could play left field and Marsh could play center field. So Merrifield could be someone that could be a utility guy and get 400 at bats. As for the pitching, yes, the Phillies didn't add anyone, but they locked down their core in Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola this offseason, re-signing Nola to a 7-year deal and giving Zach Wheeler a 3-year monster extension. So they're basically setting it right now for the next 3 years that we have the top 2 guys that we want leading us to the postseason, and we believe truly that we can get a World Series in those years. And I don't think there's anyone that would say that they can't. The 2 questions that'll now come out about whether they can or not is the back end of the rotation and the bullpen. They lost Craig Kimbrell this year, which many Phillies fans would say is not a huge loss. They're going to think about what happened in the postseason. However, Kimbrell did provide very solid numbers for the Phillies. He was an all-star. He had a tremendous first half. He was the closer for probably the majority of the season, and the Phillies have not filled his hole with a free agent. I know they were after Jordan Hicks. Hicks signed with the Giants. He wanted to be a starter. If he wants to truly start, good luck with him. Have fun in San Francisco. But the Phillies are hoping that Orion Kerkering comes up from the minors and can be a potential back end or even closer position on the team. Thompson's going to rotate his pitchers around again based on the matchup, so I don't think the Phillies are going to have a set closer. Alvarado will probably get the most since he was the team's best relief pitcher last year. But they're going to be doing a lot of mix and matching, and it's a matter of seeing what works and what doesn't work. And as for the rotation, I love Ranger Suarez. He's had an excellent spring so far, but I know not to trust too much on the spring. However, Suarez, regardless of what he's done in the regular season, has always been amazing in the postseason and can give the team a solid mid to upper 3s ERA for the regular season. The question is, will Christopher Sanchez repeat the dominance he did in his, I believe, 18 start sample last year, where he only had a whip about 1.05, which is tremendous, especially from a young guy with only a couple of years of experience. And if Taijuan Walker can bounce back, especially with the young grouping of Phillies pitchers coming up from the minors and Mick Gable and Andrew Painter, Taijuan Walker needs to prove that he can be a 3 or even a little higher pitcher for the Phillies, or else he could be sitting on the postseason bench again, and he could be traded in the next offseason. But with the team right now, I think as much as they have been the last couple of years, they're geared for another long postseason run. The bitter taste of last year's losses in their mouth, and no one scares them, especially when you have Wheeler and Nola guaranteeing you be your first 1-2 game pitchers and potentially whatever you need to close out the series.
So one question I want to actually throw back to you real quick is there was some actually discussion I seen today about Johan Rojas, about how he's been struggling in spring and what are they going to do with that other center field spot. But like, look, in my opinion, you have so many big bats in that lineup, and the defensive outfield has been such a discussion with this team for a while. When they had Schwarber and Castellanos there and stuff like that. So like, does it really matter? Like, I think Rojas is such an invaluable piece, and like, I guess maybe not even such a question, but like, with this guy, like, I just feel like you can't take him out of the lineup with how much he brings on the defensive side. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I've gone back and forth a lot about what I think the Phillies should do pertaining to Johan Rojas with opening day just around the corner. Yes, any upgrade from Schwarber is a big one, and Johan Rojas may be our best defender. So to go from probably the worst defender in baseball to maybe one of the best is a ginormous jump. And all Rojas really needs to do to be productive is probably bat 230, 680 OPS, and continue to be an outstanding defender. There are a few things I know the Phillies are wanting him to work on, including not striking out as much and working on getting bunts down, especially the bunts, because he has great speed, and a lot of his bunts were either popped foul or right back to the pitcher. In spring training so far, he's made adjustments. We haven't seen results batting-wise, other than I saw a stat beforehand that currently the pace he's at strikeout-wise in spring training is down to what his pace was last year. Granted, it's a very small sample size. However, I think it's really going to come down to the next week. If you had asked me yesterday what I think the Phillies should do, I would probably say send down Rojas for the first month of the season, maybe just a couple weeks, depending on what things go. But you want to play the long game. So if it means sending Rojas down for a month, really get him to fine-tune the hitting mechanics that he's fixing, work on his bunting, work on his plate discipline and not striking out as much, and let Whit Merrifield play left field. You can have Marsh play center. Merrifield is already going to be a huge boost offensively than Rojas, and then Merrifield's also going to be a big plus defensively than what you would have had with Schwarber. So the team can be fine with that situation for the first month, even probably going into May if they have to. I do see Rojas, regardless of whether he starts the season or not in the majors, being on the roster at the end of the season, because they will need his defense if they want to have another postseason run.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing with him. Like, they do have options, and I do like Merrifield. And, you know, you can throw Marsh at center field, but this is a guy who, when he got caught up, they praised the hell out of him, and for good reason, because he really turned things around on that defensive side, and that's when the Phillies like really started to be, you know, clicking on all cylinders. So I know he's struggling, and like, I don't know. To me, the notion of sending him down, while I get it, because of everything offensively, like, I just feel like he's so valuable to this team defensively. Having said that, though, we're actually going to throw Bobby into this rotation for the Phillies because he's also a Phillies fan for this one. So, Mr. Marsh, and how do we feel about the 2024 Philadelphia Phillies?
Man, I can't believe I finally get called on. I mean, I kind of feel special right now. I'm not even going to lie to you. But no, look, so I'm going to be the total Kool-Aid.
We got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my fault. I'm kicking you out of the call, John. So, like, I'm going to be the Kool-Aid drinker here, like, where I'm going to just kind of be like, look, if there's one thing Philly sports, all teams, by the way, they know how to just fall way too in love with the core to do anything, which makes me nervous in this case. Because and I don't think this is going to happen, but because I have to think of like, okay, what's the worst possible scenario here that could happen for the Phillies? We saw how easy it can be for them to go on the dry streaks, especially in the playoffs. We saw how in the beginning of the season, they took a little bit to kind of reach the form that we would expect out of this type of lineup. So if this goes the complete wrong way, there's a lot of questions that are going to have to be asked on who's going to have to go, because there's no way that you're going to be able to keep this core together if it doesn't work. Now, I still think they're going to make a deep playoff run, but I guess what I'm saying is that like this core has now gotten enough reps at it, is that if they don't make a valuable run this season, I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions that I don't know if we're going to feel comfortable answering. I'm happy with the moves. I'm happy with this team. I'm still a firm believer that this team is going to be able to pull something great off. But what I am saying is that if they don't succeed this season or maybe even next season, I'm going to have some extra concerns. I am happy with the addition of Whit Merrifield. I'm glad having this utility guy. I didn't know much about him before he signed, but after kind of looking into what he's been known for, he seems like the kind of perfect fit, someone to be able to kind of fill in where needed. I know Yohan Ross is obviously the first, target for him. If they need to have him and send him down and get him to work on things. I would also argue that Brandon Marsh might even be a target on that list too, because there's been times where I feel like his batting isn't up to snuff, and you can't, for the reasons that we talked about earlier with Rojas' defensive capabilities, you can't necessarily cut him out of the lineup in certain instances, especially on some of the, harder series that you're going to have to deal with. So I'm also looking at Brandon Marsh here as someone that Merrifield might have to sub in for fairly often in the lineup, but I could be proven wrong. And I also still like Brandon Marsh. I don't really hate any of the players on this lineup at all. I'm happy we were able to get the deals done. It sucks we lost Rhys Hoskins, by the way. I don't think that was mentioned yet. I feel bad for him because he's been You know, he was like one of the early members on this core team, but it makes total sense. And I got to give Bryce credit for being able to transition to first base. And the fact he's like, yeah, I'm a first baseman now. That's basically what they told me. And I'm totally okay with that. And he's fit it in a major way. It seems like almost everybody was, over the top impressed. And I think back to that scene in Moneyball where they were trying to convince Chris Pratt's character to play first base. He's like, it's incredibly hard. It is it for someone like him,
man.
Man.
Hard to play first base. Yeah, it's incredibly hard.
Incredibly hard. It's but for someone like him who is crazy athletic, gets paid $330 million, it's not that hard. And I was very happy with what I saw to him. And not that he's ever a worry to me, but it was just something that I thought from last season was worth noting and worth just kind of celebrating at the same time. I need to see the bats not dry up in the postseason, man. That's my big thing right now. It's like for the first time, I'm less worried about the pitching. Like for the first time in a while, I'm less worried about the pitching. It's really just about the streakiness that this team tends to have on the batting side of things. I could not believe the Rangers had the freest W of their life when the Diamondbacks went through. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, I do want to bring up the point that they really assembled this team over the last couple of years. Like obviously, the Phillies for a while were not a great team. Then they had Harper and Castellanos, and now Stott's come up, and they have this team. Obviously, they haven't been able to get the World Series title, even though they got to the big, the series. But at some point, maybe in the next year or two, you do have to ask questions. But I think for right now, this team is constructed very well. I do. The Braves are so good, so it's going to be tough. But I do think they can give them a run for their money for the division. But
well,
they're going to really have to play well. What's that?
I think you're missing one key aspect here: the injury situation for the Phillies. As of right now, the Phillies' injury situation there isn't one. So you got to look at you got to look at that advantage compared to almost every other team in not only the National League, but in Major League Baseball in general. The Phillies are looking pretty well. They're looking pretty in terms of what they've done. I mean, I think last season, honestly, losing Rhys Hoskins is going to give them an advantage this season because it's not like you were missing his bat. Or it's not like you're missing his bat from last season's NLCS run. So you got to look at it this way. I don't think the Phillies can go anywhere but up. If they can stay healthy, this could be a team that really upsets the Braves here and could really, could just for playing the long game in general. I think could really be a contender here and might end up being the best team in the National League. Who knows? With the way that the Dodgers, can be streaky. But to Bobby's point here, we did see in the NLCS that dry spell, and we saw those dry spells from last season. So you really got to look at it like this. If the Phillies can stay consistent and at least have some production throughout the season, where not everybody goes cold in their lineup, they shouldn't have anything to worry about. They will be in the playoffs.
I think the biggest thing for the Phillies, if they really want to challenge the Braves and, as you said, John, even potentially having the best record in the National League, because the Dodgers most likely not, Bobby noted about the Phillies' slow starts, which really is kind of their staple of the last two seasons, is they have very slow starts. Once June rolls around and summer kicks in, then they start taking off, and they are able to ride that all the way through the season and into the postseason. So the Phillies very much understand the long game and the importance of just getting into the postseason. And then once you're in the postseason, it's a whole new ball game, a whole new season. But one thing that could definitely benefit the Phillies is their schedule to start off the season this year is really, really easy in April. So after they open the series home versus the Braves at the end of March, in April, they play the Reds for 3 at home, then the Nationals, the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Rockies, White Sox, Reds, Padres, and then finish the month against the Angels. It's completely realistic to envision the team, if they can get off to a hot start, they could win 17, 18 games right there and immediately put themselves neck and neck with the Braves. And last year, maybe in the last 2 years, they've only had about 22, 24 games or one entering the end of May. So if they can jump off a huge start, that could really put them in a good position to fight for the division.
But on the flip side, though, say they have that schedule and they don't start off hot, like, does that concern you more than normal, or is it like, all right, this is par for the course, we're going to turn this around? Because, yeah, I mean, you get the White Sox, the Rockies, the NL Central, like, you should be winning a lot of those games. Like, I just fear for them. If they do start slow again, does that raise more, eyebrows than normal, like in other years?
I still think it raises no eyebrows in the end because of it. I think if you're trying to think about what's important, obviously number one is winning the World Series. But the Phillies over the last two postseasons have proven right now that they can be better than the Braves if they really wanted to, especially when it matters. So there's always that thing of we want to prove that we can really be up there with the Braves because everyone's always had, here's the Braves in a tier of their own. And then you have the Phillies and the Mets, and then there were the Marlins and the Nationals. But the Phillies have always been up there with the Dodgers and with the Braves the last two seasons, regardless of whether their records are 10, 15 games off at the end of the season because of the slow starts. So we'd like a hot start because it would really be a little bit more reassuring that, sure, the season starts good, you feel good about the team, and then let the season play on as it is. However, if they start off slow, I have perfect faith that the team will be good enough to get into the postseason again, and that's the point in the end, is getting into the postseason and then going behind Wheeler and Nola with that offense to then take you as far as you can get in the postseason.
If this team does not make the playoffs, this is cursed. That's all I'm saying is, like, there is just literally no way unless everybody blows a knee at the same time.
The league is right. They need so many.
Yeah, like seriously.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a 3-team league, and the Phillies are one of them. So you really got to look at it like that. Now, to go on the flip side of that as well, you have a easy April, easy end of March. That could mean that you have a hard, potentially a hard September, hard August. One of the back ends of the season are going to be difficult. So you have that flip side of things. Does that worry you at all?
We're going to 50 those harder months,
and that doesn't scare me at all. Looking at it already. And two, you can't look that far ahead because a lot of stuff changes in the back half of the season. You can predict a bit better right at the front end because you know what those teams are. You're entering the season with the projections and what you see out of that club. Injuries, records. Like, if you told me I had to face the Mets in September at the beginning of last year, I would have said, crap. You tell me that, like, at the All-Star break, I would have been like, that's a piece of cake. Who cares? Like, it completely changes the mindset when the end of the season comes because there's a whole other like mindset or direction the team is going. But I also don't. I mean, yes, the schedule is going to be harder because the Phillies' beginning of the season is easier. But I don't fear it at all. And again, I'm just going to reiterate the same thing. They just need to get into the postseason. More wins, you feel better as a fan. Get into the postseason. That's it.
Yeah.
I'll take another wild card berth. I will take another wild card berth. That's totally fine for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Will was right on that. Like, if you get in, you give yourself a chance because, they tend the past couple of years to play well in the playoffs. So, yeah, I think as we talked about, Dodgers, Braves, Phillies, it's going to be those teams really at the top of it. So, come playoff time, it should be very, very interesting. Let's move on to the Braves to round this off. Again, talk about another team returning a lot of its core. Obviously, very good core as well. They add Chris Sale to the rotation. They add Kelenic to the outfield, which I actually really liked at the time. Now he's not playing well in spring training, so we'll see how that goes. But like, the Braves just have such a track record of getting these guys that haven't worked out at other places and turning their careers around in Atlanta, but I mean their starting five is as good as anybody's out there. You still have Acuna, who's going to be vying for the MVP again. Matt Olson has been so good after getting traded there. Like I mean the Braves look like an unstoppable force again. I have them winning the division, even though I do obviously really like what the Phillies are doing, but I really can't see it going any other way. John, I'll go to you first this time. I mean, what are your thoughts on, again, what I think most people will think are a juggernaut of a team?
I think definitely they're the favorites, even over the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies they have 4 words to really sum up their team: stay healthy and consistent. For the Braves, it's don't don't choke in the playoffs. That's what it
It's
comes
stay
down
healthy.
to. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, stay healthy and everything, but don't choke in the playoffs is what it comes down to for the Braves. So, I'm looking at Ronald Acuna still be the force that he is on this, on this organization. But when you're looking at the overall when it comes to the Braves, you got to look at their pitching as well, and they haven't done anything to really uh, hurt themselves. In all honesty, I think as far as notable signings, they don't really have. They didn't really make a huge splash here. Um, they do have some injuries going into the season, but there's nothing really, really big. I mean, you could say that Chris Sale was a big signing, yeah, but this is Chris Sale well past when he was, dangerous, and that's me as an Orioles fan saying that and having to deal with his, you know, temperamental rear end for all those years. Anyway, when you
That's
look
a nice
at
way to put it.
that's the PG way to put it. But the Braves are just consistently the best team in this division. Honestly, this is a 2-team race here, and it could go either way. You could flip a coin, and you would not be wrong on who you pick, on who you think will win. I think the Braves have proven to be consistent and can be consistent. But if there's a team that's going to upset them, I really think that the Phillies are going to be. It could be that team, as what was proven in the NLDS from last season and the season before that, I believe. Right?
Yep.
Back-to-back years.
Yeah.
It'd have been 4.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, that's, as you said, I mean, it's big for them. Like, they have these monster regular seasons, but they just have to, obviously be the team that they can be in playoffs. I mean, we know they can. They have a World Series. With
the question is, can Ronald Acuna deliver like he did last year? I mean, he's on pace for. I'm gonna pull up these stats really quick.
Well, let's be honest. Acuna put up otherworldly numbers last year. He doesn't have to do that again. He's filled around with so much talent that as long as the guy gets on base enough, like this year, he could become the wimpiest person ever and hit 290 and only hit 10 home runs. But if he's getting on base to a 380 on base percentage with everyone else behind him, they're gonna be fine. They don't need Acuna to be the number one guy. They have 2 things that have hurt them in the playoffs.
Well, getting on base is all we're looking at now.
Well, hold on.
2 things that hurt him in the postseason.
Here's how ridiculous this guy is. He's projected to steal 57 bases. He's projected to be caught 14 times. That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, he also
ridiculous.
I don't think you can expect this guy to have a 40 home run, 70 stolen base year again, because that's absurd. But he can still be. I still think he is the MVP. I kind of talked about this already. For me, it'll be between him and Tatis, I think. But this guy is unbelievable, and the Braves are very lucky to have a player like him. But again, 73 stolen bases last year is crazy when you hit 40 home runs as well, and batted .337. That's insane. Are you kidding me?
I think as long as he stays healthy, they honestly could be better than the Dodgers. Not necessarily in terms of record, but in terms of quality. I think they could be better than the Dodgers.
I completely agree with that. I think the Braves are, now if they get the Phillies again and the playoffs, which could happen, they got to show up this year. But I really think that the Braves are a big piece this year. He cut himself out again.
There's 2 things I'm going to say about what the Braves need to do to be successful in the postseason, and this is going to go into part of my thoughts about what they've done this offseason. The two things that have stopped them in the postseason are, one, not be able to catch up to the Phillies pitchers throwing hard, which going into the division series last year, it was said stat-wise that they were like really like subpar baseball. Their team average was maybe about 240, but I think their slugging percentage was under 400. Like, it was really, really bad. Sure, if you want to throw in the day off, that probably just made it worse. But the other thing, and this is to me the bigger thing, is that the Braves have not been healthy in their starting rotation entering the playoffs the last 2 years. They had, in 22, Max Fried was sick and Strider was dealing with an injury. Both of them lost their games. Last year, Strider was, I think, maybe the only healthy one entering the postseason. For sure, because Fried was coming off of an injury, at least not pitching well or something. And then their game 3 pitcher was Bryce Elder. So the Braves needed to try to bring in a piece to help fortify that, hey, we need someone that can be healthy and be effective for us entering the postseason. And getting Chris Sale just is a huge question mark to me, because it seems like you're getting him based on the guy he was, and gambling that he can be healthy by the end of the season. Sure, I think he finished off last year healthy, but he started, like 2.5 months after the season started, and then he hadn't put in full seasons the prior 2 years from that. So Chris Sale is far from the guy he's been. Sure, he doesn't have to be their ace. They can go with Strider and Fried, and there's no issue with that. But I don't understand why the Braves were trading a lot of pieces away this offseason, and what very much seemed like a we want to win now sort of reaction, because you're trading away a lot of promising young guys. You had points in Kyle Wright, Michael Soroka, and Vaughn Grissom. And what you're bringing in is basically enough to give you a slight advantage probably from the team you had starting the year last year, just because the rotation, I would say, is a little bit better. But I just don't understand what the Braves are thinking pitching-wise. Sure, they make it to the postseason, everything could work dandy. It all worked out. But they're taking a huge risk right now with what they've done. They could have traded for Cease. They could have signed Montgomery instead. But no, they went with Sale, and I just don't know if that's going to be the right move when playing the long game here.
Oh, that is not the right move. That is not what they needed to do. And I think that this NLDS loss is bothering that organization, that team, more than what they're letting on. So I definitely think this was a desperation throw here of we have to beat these guys, in the playoffs. The records don't matter. It comes down to, when we see Philly in the playoffs, can we beat Philly? And that's all that, whereas the Phillies, they're trying to make they're trying to take that next step. Whereas the Braves, I think, are just trying to beat the Phillies.
But I think you guys are also blowing out of proportion, though, because you have Max Fried and Spencer Strider, who are going to be good. You still have Charlie Morton. Like, I don't think you need Chris Sale to. Yeah, well, I get that, but like.
But that's the point. It has nothing to do with the talent. We've already said the talent on this team is amazing. You need to give me the guarantee that at the end of the season, they're going to be healthy. And at least 3 of those 4 guys, I can say I have no faith that they're going to be healthy when September comes, and they're going to be what the Braves need to get into the postseason. Sure, they can be great throughout the entire season. But if anything happens near the end, and it has shown the last 2 years it can, I have no faith right now if I'm a Braves fan, and I'm kind of upset. I don't have Cease on my team right now, who has been healthy the last 3 years. Win me a World Series, I don't care.
You have options. You have options.
The Braves could go out and get Snell.
You have question marks after that. You have options, but they're all question marks right now.
Well, I get that, but look, there's still free agents out there, but you think that if they have injuries by the trade deadline, they're not going to go out and get let's just say I don't know who's a pitcher on an expiring deal that's going to be.
Well, the fact that you can't think of someone, I think, is a good start.
Well, I'm sure. What's the guy? Shane.
The Braves right now are probably set up. But the Braves are probably set up right now with the mindset of, we're going to go with these guys we have, and if we need to fill in some, we have 3 young guys we like in the minors. Again, all of that.
Well, that's
a lot of my thing is, I'm just going back into the post or the off-season moves, and why they got Sale to me makes no sense. They have the options
really was
and they
not a
have
smart move.
potential. I just want to. If I'm a Braves fan, I want the guarantee that they're making a move. To me, that feels like they have the mindset of the postseason and the issues we had the last 2 years. And the move that was made did not fix that issue, and that's the problem.
But again, I think they feel like they have depth and they're gonna have options. That's what I'm saying. Like I think that they do have, because I think what's his name, Smith Shawver, they sent back down, I believe, but like he was
They spent
or not
Sharver,
Smith
Elder, and Noah. No, you're right.
Yeah,
Smith, Sharver,
so like
Bryce Elder, and are all down.
So like I think they're comfortable with if there is an injury, but again, I'm also saying that I think if there is a pitcher out there on the block, but I'm saying if Chris Sale isn't working out right, they're not gonna hesitate to go out and get somebody. At least in my opinion, like I think that they'll go out and try to get somebody at the deadline if starting pitching is really an issue, because I do think that they're very in on, okay, like we want to win again. We have obviously the offense to do it, so pitching isn't going to hold us back this year. So we'll do whatever it takes.
I get what you're saying. Be a good person for me to believe it.
Here's the thing: when you got to look at it this way, when it comes to the Braves, they are definitely in a win now mentality. Their farm system is the 5th worst in baseball, and their top 5 prospects are all pitchers, and only 2 of them are tier 1 pitchers according to Bleacher Report. So you got to look at it that way. They are in a win now, and this is definitely a desperation mode. This signing was not a smart signing.
Injuries, though.
Like it wasn't.
No, what I'm saying, I'm not predicting injuries. My issue is that we're talking about the offseason and what they are going into the season. I'm saying that they're going to be a good team, and I'll even say it now. I have them winning the division already, even though I know that, of course, the Phillies can make it close. But when I'm thinking about this season and like what was done to build this team preparing for opening day, my question is about what they did in Sale, and that's going to be the question. We'll reapproach the situation again when September and October rolls around, because then we'll truly know the situation in regards to what their health is at that time. But if you're entering the season and based on what they did in the offseason to prepare for this season, the move they made does not make sense to me. That's my problem right now. Not that I'm predicting they're going to get hurt, but that they have a history of pitchers getting hurt. So their answer is to bring in a pitcher who has a history of getting hurt.
Yeah, I mean, again, I get that. I'm just saying they have options. You also won 104 games last year with, I think they know Chris Sale's injury history, but you could also, maybe he works out, and like I think that's a thing. And I think they know they have Elder and Schuster in the minors if they need them, because they were there a lot last year. And you'd assume that they're going to get better, but their pitching rotation this year is better than last year, I believe, and they won 104 games last year. So while there's a question mark with the injury, again, I think they will have options if something happens. And again, I wouldn't rule them out on getting another big fish, maybe at the trade deadline or something. Let's go to our predictions real quick, though, because we are running very, very over on the NL. I will give mine first. So my predictions for the 2024 NL East, I had the Braves winning 102 games, having 60 losses, and the only reason I actually have them at a lower win total than last year is because I do think the Mets are going to have a better year, and the Marlins will still be okay, and I still think the Nationals will have a few more wins, so I take their total down there. The Phillies I have at 91 and 71. They will be the top wild card. I have the Mets at 83 and 79 and just missing the playoffs by like 2 to 3 games. But I actually think the Mets have a pretty good chance to be decent again this year. I have the Marlins taking a step back, going 77 and 85 and missing the playoffs, mainly just because I'm not thrilled about the additions they made to the offense for what they lost and their pitching situation. And I know it's March, but if these things continue to be a problem, that's going to be a tough start to the season and something hard. It's going to be hard to come back from for them. So I have them missing, and I actually have the Nationals at 74 and 88, but obviously still missing the playoffs. But I do think they had a few more wins this year. Will, let's go over to you for your predictions.
Leading the division, I have the Braves at 98 and 60. I have my numbers wrong. So what is that? 98 and 64. I wrote 66.
Yes, 64.
Leading the division, I have the Phillies second with 95 wins and the first wild card spot. Then I have the Mets third, 81 and 81. And then this is where I take a big drop off from you. I have the Marlins in fourth with 69 wins. And
Nice.
the Nationals last at 65.
Nice.
Okay, fair enough. John, what are your predictions for this division?
Well, I'm going different than both of you here. I am going with the Phillies winning the division at 96 wins. And then in a very close second place, I'm going with the Braves at 95 wins. I think this Phillies team is geared up to upset the Braves here. I think the Mets are definitely going to be a mid 500 team. In all honesty, I think they're mediocre. I don't think they make the playoffs. The Marlins didn't help themselves, so I have them honestly not even reaching 80 wins. I'm going to go with them 70 to 75, and then obviously the Nationals I think will be regressing to honestly below 65 wins. If we want to go to Vegas, Vegas has the Braves favored at the moment with minus 290 on FanDuel, then has the Phillies with plus 330 on FanDuel. So definitely picking those two to be the favorites to win this division. The Braves have the edge there, but it's definitely close according to Vegas. Then you have the Mets, Marlins, and Nationals in that order, and the drop off is literally plus 1,200 for the Mets being the next closest. And if you really want to be ballsy, you can bet on the Nationals to win the NL East at plus 12,000 on FanDuel, but you probably aren't going to get that money back. Anyway,
I think two things to wrap this up. I think for me, the Mets, if they had Senga to start the year, I'd have them as a wild card team. But losing him for maybe a couple months, I think, is going to hinder them. And also, John, I can definitely see the Phillies taking the division, but until the Braves prove otherwise that they are not going to win this division, I'm picking them every year.
I just think the Sale move was not the right move. And I think
the only thing I'm really taking away from the Braves win total is that the Braves had a historic year offensively last year. The fact that them replicating that is slim to none, I feel like. So they're going to take some loss. They're going to not have as many wins purely from that fact alone. The question is just how many less are they having?
Yeah. Let's move on.
Really have. Yeah. No, I was going to say, when it comes to the Braves, I think you have nowhere to go but down because of that historic factor. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be tough for them.
I'm going to say the same thing with the Orioles.
But, yeah. Well, let's get over to the AL East as we will start from the bottom up. Start with the Red Sox, who, man, some unfortunate circumstances for them. They finished last year 71 and 91. Man, they had some decent signings, right? Well, they're essentially all injured now. So they get Giolito. He's done for the year. Vaughn Grissom is hurt, which I will say one thing about that sale trade. The Braves, I think the Braves are going to regret letting Grissom go. I really like him as a player. Hendricks is hurt, obviously, and they knew that when they signed him, but yeah, a lot of their big pieces that they got in this offseason gone for the year, and they lost a lot of pieces. Obviously, Chris Sale, we talked about James Paxton, Verdugo goes, Justin Turner, Duvall. Just a lot going out, and yeah, not great things happening in Boston right now. Will, what are your thoughts on the Red Sox?
Boston has done nothing. Now, granted, injuries probably are a big part of that. But in a sense now, with the injuries to Grissom, Hendricks, and Giolito, you're left with O'Neill. You lost Sale, Paxton, Verdugo, Turner, Duvall, Urias. They have done little to improve the offense, and injuries have only made things worse. This team is set up to finish worse than they did last year by a decent margin.
You know what, short and sweet, and I absolutely agree. John, anything positive or negative about the Red Sox?
They're the Red Sox. Be negative if you want. Now's your chance.
So, I don't want to see anyone get hurt. However,
oh God,
as an Orioles fan, this could not happen to a better team, in my opinion, because I don't like the Red Sox. So I'm sorry.
Wow, groundbreaking! You don't like the Red Sox, man? Never would have guessed.
I know. Groundbreaking.
The sky is blue.
So as of right now, I am enjoying their misfortune. It's not going to last forever, so but looking at it, the only real bright spot here for the Red Sox is to look towards the future. For this season, Yoshida is probably the one guy that I'm honestly going to, look forward to watching if I'm a Red Sox fan, and that's about
Not Devers?
Not
Rafael Devers?
Okay. No, sir. Because I don't think he's going to be on that team for much longer. In terms
Didn't they
of
sign him to like an 8-9 year extension like a year ago?
I still don't think it's going to. Yeah. Anyway, when it comes down to it, the Red Sox definitely have a future here. They have the third best farm system, so that's going to hurt me down the line. I agree with Will. I think they're going to finish worse than they did last year. Last year, they only had 78 wins. I think they could be like 75 wins, in all honesty. So, yeah, keep moving.
Yeah, Boston got themselves in the race last year for a wild card spot for a bit, but in the end, just not enough. And again, they
really didn't.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, though, like they did finish 11 games out, I guess. But like, I feel like for a while they were like, okay, kind of sticking around, but
they have a good offense, mediocre pitching, and the pitching crapped out in the end.
Yeah. Giolito,
I mean, maybe you can enjoy. Maybe you can enjoy Devers, but like if you're the star at the top of the feces pile, it doesn't. It's not the place you want to be.
The feces pile.
This is a PG show, okay?
You have a way with words, my friend. Let's move on to the
linguist.
The Yankees, who missed the playoffs last year at 82-80. And again, a little bit unfortunate news for them to start this year with Garrett Cole, who we have already talked about, missing some time, or he will miss some time to start the season, which is obviously a huge loss for them. So, we'll see. But they add to this lineup that they had last year. They obviously get Juan Soto in the offseason. Verdugo comes over, Sherman comes over, Trent Grisham, who actually I think will play like a more important role for them than they think when he gets there in the outfield. But yeah, I mean, Garrett Cole getting hurt is a big blow for this team, and I think the Yankees were a team that a lot of people were really predicting to maybe this is the year that they get back to the World Series, but. What are your thoughts on this team, Will, with kind of all things considered and that Garrett Cole injury?
Well, the Yankees, I think, are going to make the postseason. I think they made too many huge adjustments offensively and a couple pitching additions to not make the postseason. But with the Garrett Cole injury now, the question is, how much does that hurt the team? With Cole out for it looks like at least a couple months. Your number one in the rotation is most likely Stroman or Rodon. Both of them are very capable of leading a rotation. Stroman's had more consistent health wise the last few years than Rodon has been, and Cortez. They have the abilities pitching wise to still have a strong top three in the rotation. I don't know what they're going to do right now to fill Cole's absence. For now, they have a couple options, but nothing I would guarantee on as like definite things they could rely on. The Soto addition in the lineup is something I do like a lot. Having him and Judge together, regardless of who bats ahead of the other, is probably the deadliest duo in baseball. and they have nice depth now in the outfield with Verdugo, Judge, Soto, Trent Grisham, and then later in the year they should be getting back Dominguez. The Yankees team is probably no longer really the favorite or in the discussion, I would say, for the division with the injury of Cole. The question is, where do those pesky Rays fit themselves in? Because regardless of what they do in the offseason, they always seem to fight during the regular season and make it into the playoffs.
That is a team that just will not die.
Yeah.
They will not die.
I mean, exactly. they're well coached and you know, they don't really have that super big superstar name, but they have a lot of really good players. We will get to them in a second.
The flip side of that, the Yankees are, in my opinion, not well coached, or at least not well managed.
Well, how do you feel about them in that case?
I don't think that they have a good manager. I don't think they have a good general manager. The Yankees, honestly, they made the same Yankees moves they have been making since they signed Stanton. You know, it's big home runs. We're going to take advantage of the short porches here at Yankee Stadium, and we're going to guarantee ourselves 81 wins. You know, that's fine. You can do that, but you know, honestly, it seems like bigger guys, they seem to get hurt a lot more, such as like Stanton, Judge, for example. I'm curious what Soto will do. You know, and you gotta. Honestly, I'm not afraid of the Yankees like I should be, and it just comes down to this Cole, the Cole injury really impacts that for me, and I think that was their biggest loss that they could have possibly had. The only one that could have been worse for them is honestly if Judge went down, just because he's, you know, the impact player that he is. So when you look at the Yankees overall, I think that they could honestly miss the playoffs. I don't think they will, but they have to stay healthy, and they have yet to prove that they can stay healthy for the long run. At least they haven't been able to do it consistently. And honestly, I continue to say this. If I'm a Yankees fan, Stanton is my worst enemy. He has not lived up to that contract whatsoever. No,
yeah, well, the contract you didn't sign him for, technically.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, in looking at what he's projected for a batting average, it's 233. That's ridiculous.
He hits 40 home runs. I'll live with that.
He is projected for 25 home runs. So
yeah, it's probably under 400 at bats, though.
385, and only playing 104 games, but that's still, I want my money back if I'm a New York fan. I want that money
that
back.
The Yankees fans put in on Stanton.
Oh yeah, all the money they put in on Stanton. But yeah,
I mean,
that must be nice to be able to burn that money. That must be nice.
Also, a report comes out. DJ LeMahieu is now questionable for opening day with an injury as well. We'll have to monitor that. But, yeah, man, I you know, this team I think does have the potential if they stay healthy, and I know you can say that about any team, but I mean,
that's what the Yankees are, is potential.
Oh, I know, but like, I mean, the product this year, like getting Juan Soto, I think is gonna be crazy. For them, I think he's going to really perform, and you know,
if he stays healthy.
If you say, I'm sure, but again, you can say that for any team. I'm just saying
Soto's been healthy in general, right? Yeah, everyone injuries are always going to be the thing that could hurt them.
It just seems like seems like these big guys, when they go to New York, it's like they can't stay healthy. It's just what it seems like to me.
It's because they're.
I mean, Stanton's been hurt. Well, Stanton is just was such a big guy that eventually it caught up that his body couldn't support it. Judge is too tall, and then Rizzo's injury last year was just a freak of nature and poorly handled. So
yeah, I mean, they just got a blow out last year.
The guy can't do math anymore because of that.
Jesus, that's so messed up.
That is a wild statement.
But unfortunately, it's it's the reality of the situation here. That situation was horribly handled by the Yankees, and they should
Yeah.
be torn apart for that. I don't know who was making those decisions, but they should be fired if they weren't already.
Let's move over to the Blue Jays across the border. A lot of people down on them this year, and obviously some,
That's
some
rightfully
obviously,
so.
yeah, I'm gonna say rightfully so by some people. They still have, their young bats that are in that middle of that lineup. They add Justin Turner in the offseason. They add IKF, which I'm sure Yankees fans are happy to get rid of him. And they add Eduardo Escobar as well, but they lose Merrifield. They lose, obviously, Matt Chapman, a big loss for them. I still think this lineup can be good, but again, they're just in this division with all these good teams. Like, you have to be, I think adding more than they did, and we'll have to see with them. But Will, what are your thoughts on this Blue Jays roster?
I do think they took a step back finally. I mean, they've always been this young core that's been highly praised to be the team that leads them to multiple division titles within this beast of an AL East. And they just have not done that, especially when they get to the postseason. This offense crumbles instantly. The additions of Turner is probably the only one that I kind of like, just because I do feel like he's a bit underrated and has been consistently producing like a 270s, 280s, around 20 plus home runs. But outside of that, I don't necessarily have faith that this offense anymore is what they think it is. They need to do more to really surround or help with this young core. Maybe that's a veteran bat that maybe they were hoping Chapman was and no longer is. The pitching should still be a strength for them. It was last year, though. If Alex Manoah is indeed your number 5 pitcher, good luck. Things weren't good last year. Things don't look better this year. But in a division where everyone is trying to upgrade to compete, this Blue Jays team did not upgrade enough to really look like they can compete with the rest of the division.
Yeah, I think you're right about, like, again, in a division where everybody is getting better, especially going into the season, I think that they probably took a step back in that case. And, you're going to have to really have, Vladdy and Bichette go off and have your pitching be as well, as good as it was last year to propel you. I'm down on the Blue Jays this year, but they have been pretty consistent throughout these, last few seasons, that it wouldn't surprise me. Another team, or actually, John, I'm sorry. John, I almost forgot about you. We're going to you. What are your thoughts on the Blue Jays?
I'm
sorry.
Man.
In John's division, you skip him nearly?
Wow. I know. I caught myself. But I caught myself. I did.
You're tipping your hand, though.
Yeah.
No, but in terms of the Blue Jays, this team doesn't scare me. It's it's not they aren't consistently good, honestly.
They are consistently good. They just aren't the level of good they think they are.
Well, that's the thing, is that they should be much better than what they play at. So what is your
that doesn't mean they're not good. It just they made the playoffs with this team every year. I'd say that's good.
Didn't make it last year, did they?
They did. And they lost in the first round.
They lost to the Twins.
Right.
I don't know why I thought
they lost to the Mariners.
I don't know why I thought
Yankees
the Yankees
won 82 games.
I know. Sorry.
Sure? Look, I mean, this is an almost 90-win team last year, by the way. Like, I think it's going to be hard for them to hit those heights again, too. I just want to add that, but
I get that it's going to be hard for them to hit those heights again, but this team is not getting any younger. They're not really helping themselves. They didn't make any moves, and their farm system is not good. So you have all those factors. The Toronto Blue Jays, they are not being set up for success here. And how did they recently sign Vladimir Guerrero, or did they or is he still on his rookie contract? Have they not re-signed him yet?
He's under like arbitration to a certain extent.
Okay, well, my
Like,
point is that you're looking at possibly losing him in the next couple of years, so your window is closing if it hasn't
Yeah,
already.
he's under arbitration until 26. So you still have
Okay, so
well,
2 years.
you'll have the
really?
yeah,
That seems too long.
2024. Yeah, he'll be 2026. He will be off of arbitration.
So
Also 25. I think he's only 25 years old. That's crazy, bro. He's a grown man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays, honestly, their pitching rotation, you have Kevin Gausman as, their ace. I think that's about
Walks all the time.
in terms. Yeah, I mean, in terms of, a good pitching rotation, that's all they got.
They have a
Everything
solid
else,
rotation. It's just
it's solid, but
they
it's
don't
not
do that much.
like it doesn't scare me. It doesn't. It does not. It does not. I'm not going up against some guy. I'm not going up against anybody except for Gausman and go, oh, I don't know how we're gonna get on base today.
But they put up most of those guys, and I say most because Berrios, I think, has been a little bit back and forth since he's been to Toronto. Have been, aside from Gausman, like mid-3 ERAs people, especially in Bassett and Kikuchi. So they give you a very good, like, reliable 1 through 4.
Yeah,
it's the
but
offense
it's not
that has been
elite.
the struggle in the postseason.
Yeah,
I mean, if the
I mean,
offense
definitely in the
stepped up in the
postseason.
postseason, then aside from that one game 2 years ago where the bullpen blew it versus the Mariners, the offense seems like it's been taking a nap.
I mean, I wonder how much that is still affecting them, to be honest, because the team wasn't too different
I
between now
do
and
wonder
then.
if maybe they're kind of realizing that they aren't as good as they think they are, and they're kind of either trying too hard or getting overly matched, and they're not figuring out making the right adjustments going into the next postseason, next season, whatever.
Yeah, I think that first part of that sentence of they're not as good as they think they are is I think that sums that up perfectly, in all honesty.
I think they're gonna struggle a little bit. Not struggle this year, but I think they're gonna take a step back. Now I'll move on to the Rays, who are the pillar of consistency. It feels like
they just won't die.
They won't. They
Commander injuries trying to take them down right now.
I mean, last year they finished 2 games out of first place in the division, 99 wins last year. They're missing some pieces for last year. One of them being Wander Franco. It's all
the loss of McClanahan is definitely going to hurt them.
Yeah, well, so they lose McClanahan, and then Glasnow goes. So your starting pitching rotation is not as potent as it was. Like Eflin would be good again. They have Savali, like okay, but man, like you just lost your 2 aces essentially this offseason. That
they
hurts.
could have had I mean, this season they could have had a pitching rotation that could have been deadly and could have stopped any offense. But now, because of Glasnow going, because of McClanahan being out for the season, you're left with Eflin, and Eflin's good, but it's not as good of a rotation as it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Springs is potentially returning, and Drew Rasmussen. Like, you're right. With all these injuries, Taj Bradley, I think they were going to have him as their 5th starter potentially. Mm-hmm. He now got hurt. Like, man, they are absolutely obliterated by this. And as far as their lineup goes, it is a lot of the same as last year for the most part. I mean, they add Ahmed Rosario, which I do like that acquisition, but this to me. So here's the thing. To me, this feels like a team that should take a step back, but as we keep saying, they just don't believe in that. So I don't know.
They just won't die.
I'm done trying to predict against them. I've done that in the past. It's never worked. They always figure out something. They know how to use the team and use their I don't even know if I want to call it Moneyball. So it seems like it's a whole other thing, really.
They're voodoo.
It just takes a bit of Moneyball and then they made it's voodoo baseball. Who knows? So I'm just, you're right. The pitching does not look as bad. There are young talent, young pitchers I do like, and I think can be good. And I feel like the Rays are the team that if someone has a strength, they will find a way to amplify it. And so they're going to make the postseason again. I'm not going to say I believe it looking at it, but they're the Rays, so they'll find a way.
I have a question that I want to pose. I have a question that I want to pose to everybody, and John, maybe there's an over/under for this if you could find it. How many children do you think were sacrificed to the baseball gods to allow the Rays to continue to do the things that they're doing? Like, what is the over/under there? Like, what do the baseball gods require
per season?
To have the type of success? It's a better question. Like, are we talking like
since obviously before they were garbage? I'm gonna go.
So I'm just putting a thought out there.
No, they're not sacrificing children. They're sacrificing their fans.
No, they're sacrificing cows. That's why they have the cowbells.
Look, all I'm saying is that is a dangerous topic to bring up about sacrificing children with how the offseason went for Wander Franco. That's all I'm gonna say. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful.
Good point.
You gotta be careful.
All right.
That's not what I'm referring to. Good Lord.
Of all the teams you were going to bring that up with, Bobby, come on, man.
I just made him feel
I no longer associate with
this is why I don't talk most of the time.
Yeah, get back in the corner. Who said you could talk?
No, I kid. That is a terrible situation. I don't think he should ever play in the league again. But we do have to bring him up because he is a big loss for them. Like, dude, they were talking about him as being like the next great player, and obviously for
4 or 5 years, and they would have traded him like everyone else.
Yeah,
I mean,
but like,
that's not a wrong statement, but in terms of overall baseball, yeah.
Well, I just think obviously losing him is while it's warranted and everything, like it's still going to be a big loss for them going forward because he was really projected to be a great player. By the way, their projected fifth starter is Shane Baz, who I actually think has the potential to really break out. By the way, was the player to be named later in the Pirates trade for Chris Archer, still the worst trade of all time. Literally traded Glasnow. Literally traded Glasnow, Meadows, and Shane Baz for Chris Archer, who had like a 6 ERA with us.
Hey Tyler, thanks for the Pirates. Not only did you screw us out of 2 World Series in the 70s, you're also affecting us in the 21st century. Thanks, buddy.
Look, we that's what we
indirectly too.
We are out to get
indirectly,
the Orioles.
but
you know what? We might just trade like O'Neal Cruz to the Yankees. Like why not?
No, send him to the Red Sox.
I don't even. You know what? I say that. I don't even want to put that out there because they will do it. They will send him.
You just put it out in the ether. It will happen. Congratulations.
And I'm the one that said it. Great.
You got to sacrifice more children for that.
Let's move on to the Orioles because I know this is going to take time and we are running out of it. The Orioles won the division last year.
I don't like how you put me at the end here when we're running out of time.
I'm sorry. We talked
best for last
for a half an hour.
Yep. Best for last till you cut me off. All right. Here we go, folks. Here we go. This is your World Series champion, Baltimore Orioles. We are starting off with Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Cedric Mullins, Jackson Holiday, potentially, and Teddy Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, the king of the castle, Jordan Westberg, Austin Hayes, and rounding us off.
How do we go from a Baltimore accent to a British accent when talking about baseball? I feel like you're on the wrong side of the earth.
Dude, he said castle is like British.
We have James McCann, Ramon Urias, and Jorge Mateo to round us off at the end there. So this is a team that unfortunately does have some key injuries. Obviously, Felix Bautista, that one hurt so much. But we got Craig Kimbrell here. I think that he, even if he is serviceable towards the end here, I think you know eh, compared to what he was to end the season, I think that definitely uh, you have the potential for that bullpen to be just as good as it was last year. John Means, disappointing. He's a month behind schedule, but once we get him back, that aspect of it, of what he can deliver when he is on point, is really serviceable. It's really helpful. And then you have Kyle Bradish, that UCL sprain. Things are looking up. He'll probably, honestly, it's not going to be. I don't think it'll be as bad as what was initially thought, which was Tommy John surgery. But as of 5 days ago, he had thrown a bullpen session that was, it was all fastballs, but still throwing a bullpen session after literally 2 days into spring training, you are potentially going to have uh, Tommy John surgery and end your season before it even gets started. That's a big, big factor and big success. I'm looking at this core here of, Adley, Gunnar, Jordan, Ryan, and possibly Jackson Holiday. Now, I say possibly Jackson Holiday because the Orioles have shown over the past couple seasons you have these key guys that are
New
from
ownership.
your minor league system. Yes, new ownership. Yes. You have new ownership, but the general manager is still the same, Mike Elias, and Elias we trust. And he has shown to not rush guys to the major leagues just to give them the opening day start. Now, Jackson Holiday could be a different situation. He is raking right now in spring training, and he's doing very well. So that might be different. But only time will tell. And then our pitching rotation going into this season. And I do say "are" because I am an Orioles fan. If you can't tell by the shirt, the orange, the flags, whatever. But you have Corbin Burns, Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer, John Means, Kyle Bradish, Tyler Wells. You have depth, and that's my point. You have this is a rotation that got better with adding Corbin Burns as an ace. I think that honestly, this could be the best team in the American League. And I really think that overall, the Orioles, I am drinking the orange Kool-Aid, and I think overall the Orioles are the team to beat in this division. And I think they're the team to beat possibly in the American League itself. So I'm just gonna pencil us in for the World Series here, and that's not something that I have ever said in my life. This in March, but listen, that's not.
You're making him think and read text. We said you can't do that, Bobby.
Yeah, you're cutting me off my train of thoughts.
He don't gotta look at it. Let me do my job, and he can do his.
You're doing your job, is hurting his job.
Don't look at it. Minimize the tab.
In all seriousness, though, when you look at the Orioles, this is a team that just got better, and that's hard to say considering they were a 101 win team last season. You got nothing but better on that aspect. Injuries aside, I think definitely this is just. I'm so happy to be an Orioles fan today.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when prospects pan out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Look, the Orioles, for me, I think, I do think they are the top team in the AL East at this point, which obviously it's been good for them because, I mean, for Orioles fans for a while, it was very doom and gloom. And again, it just shows that you can develop prospects in this league, and all these guys
you can go through a rebuild.
I mean, you can go through a rebuild, and then like all these guys that kind of came up together, like you can build a core with. It is kind of refreshing in that sense. Maybe that's because I'm a Pirates fan and I'm wishing the same thing, but they have been so good. Getting Corbin Burns is going to be huge, and as you said, I know they have the injuries at pitcher right now, but you do have some depth there, and I think as well, if they really need to, they're not going to be afraid to go out and acquire somebody if need be.
Jackson Holliday not with this new ownership, honestly.
Really? You think? I don't know. I was always I thought like maybe if the Bradish injury was longer, like they would look at a guy like Shane Bieber to bring in, but you would know.
I think it could still happen come the trade deadline. In all honesty,
yeah.
I
Regardless,
do think new owners tend to spend money to show that they are for their new teams. They'll spend money.
Yeah.
Will, what do you think about this Orioles team heading into this season?
I don't have too much to say differently than what's already been said. The two main things will be kind of like the Braves. The Orioles vastly outperformed expectations last year. Therefore, you'll have a step back in that regards in the win total, most likely. You'll also have a step back in regards of Kimbrel replacing Bautista. Yes, I'm in favor of Kimbrel's better than some people think he is in Philly. But Kimbrel compared to Bautista, that is a massive drop-off.
Thank God it's not just me thinking the same.
Yeah. Oh, I can 100% agree with you.
There will be games that are lost because of that. So the Orioles are still the team to win the division. I still think the Astros, because of everything, are still going to be the team to beat, even if they aren't always the best team in the American League. They're just the team to beat because. But the Orioles absolutely have a bright future ahead of them, with the pitching staff and with the lineup.
I think the Corbin Burnes deal has really, I think the Corbin Burnes trade has really shown that this team is here to win now. We're not here to win for the future. We are prepared to make that next step. And honestly, what hurt us last year was our inexperience, our youth, and our pitching when it came time for the playoffs. And Corbin Burnes solves two of those three. So, I think...
Oh, breaking news. Breaking news. The Giants just landed Snell.
Really? Serious? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Hold on a minute.
Well, that just changes everything because...
All right, this is going to be an even longer episode because now we're going to switch to breaking news.
Yeah, I guess we're done with the Orioles.
Give John his Orioles moment.
So before we move on to our predictions overall, Ty, I do want to say and add onto that, I do think that puts the Giants in the wild card hunt there. So good for them. Well, good for you, San Fran.
So at the end of this, we were all going to do like, okay, what do we think the wild card is now? That we can't do that now because now I don't know.
Yes, we can. I can. What away I can? Because I had the Giants in.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
So his doesn't change.
So I had the Padres getting in as a third wild card team, but now I would probably favor the Giants on that aspect. Let's before we get to that at the very end, let's finish up with our prediction for the AL East quickly, and then we can move on. So I'll go mine first as well. I had the Red Sox at 71 and 91 being in the basement. They'll miss the playoffs. They will regress. I had the Blue Jays in fourth at 85 and 77, also missing the playoffs, also regressing. This is going to be the one that bites me. I have the Rays at 88 and 74, and okay, you're not muted, buddy. Also missing the playoffs. This guy's moaning in my ear as I'm getting predictions. The Rays at 88 and 74 also missing the playoffs. That, again, could bite me, but I have that. I have the Yankees at 95 and 67, being the first wild card in the AL, and then I have the Orioles winning the division at 98 and 64. Will, what do you got?
I think my top three will have some interesting feelings towards it. So I'm going to start from the bottom. At the bottom, I have the Red Sox. 70 and 92, I really debated whether to put them. I debated really about whether to give them in the 60 win total, but I decided to just pick 70 and leave it at that. Fourth, I have the Toronto Blue Jays, 85 wins. And in third place, I have the New York Yankees with 89 wins. Rays get second with 91 wins. And then leading the division are the Orioles with 93 wins, but the Rays and Yankees both make the playoffs.
John, what do you got?
So I have something similar to Will there. I do have it. I have the record totals different, but it is similar. I have the Red Sox at 71 wins. I don't think that they're going to be a 60-win team or a 60-win total team, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to be good. They've done nothing but regress. The Blue Jays, I actually have at 581 wins. I don't think they get anywhere close to the playoffs. Then I have the Rays at third with 89 wins. I have the Yankees with 90 wins. And then I have the Orioles. Honestly, this is very exciting for me to say. 98 wins here for the Orioles, first place. Boy, that's nice to say. Let's go to Vegas. Vegas has. Let me pull this up here.
We don't have time for Vegas.
We have time for Vegas. We always have time for Vegas. All right, the Vegas.
That one smells involved.
Right now, I'll go with FanDuel again. So they are plus 150 for the Yankees right now to win the division. Then the Orioles plus 200, and then the Blue Jays of plus 380. Then they have the Rays and the Red Sox. So Vegas disagrees with us
on the Rays.
On the Blue Jays, yeah. I mean, I would go for that. I think we'll just set it there. So when you look at it overall, I think the Orioles are set up for success here. But yeah, Vegas, they're always going to lean towards the Yankees. I think that's just a pretty typical thing, to be honest.
So as far as the wild card goes for the AL, I had the the Yankees, Mariners, and Rangers making it, and then the Rays 1 win off from being a wild card team, and the Blue Jays 4 wins off. I think that stays the same for me for the AL, but the NL, like I said, I think that changes now with the Giants. I don't know if you guys have gotten that far with your wild card predictions, but
I have.
I got them.
Yeah,
I got them.
All right. Well, John is confident. We'll go to John first.
All right. So I'm going to go the Yankees with first wild card. Then the Houston Astros with the second wild card. And then the Rays with the third wild card. And then I have the Orioles, the first seed, Mariners, second seed, and Minnesota by default, third seed. And then going over to the National League, I actually have Philly win the division, which was stated. Dodgers first seed, Philly second seed, Atlanta as the top wild card, Arizona as the second wild card, San Fran as the sixth seed, and then you have Chicago additionally by default the third seed.
Okay. You love the Central, don't you? And Will, we'll go to you now.
It's the Comedy Central for a reason, buddy.
Dude, I just love your by default. The Central will be, and you're right, but it's funny. Will, what do you have for your wild card predictions?
So starting with the American League, the division leaders are the Astros with the number 1 seed, then the Orioles, and then the Twins. The wild card teams are the Rays, Mariners, then Yankees, getting the last wild card spot, and the Rangers are the next closest 3 games out of the playoffs. And in the National League, Dodgers have the number 1 seed, then the Braves and the Cubs. And then for the wild card teams, the Phillies have the first wild card slot, then the Diamondbacks. And now after the Snell news, I originally, before the Padres had traded for Dylan Cease, had the Giants with the slight edge over the Padres. That flipped after the Cease trade. I'm going to have to move it back and give the Giants the last wild card slot because of it, and the Padres will only be about a game out because of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, like that signing with the Giants really, mixes things up now. Like,
So last night he was looking at Houston, and I'm so happy he didn't sign with Houston.
Oh, I know.
So happy.
Well, yeah. Again, I'm surprised with like the Yankees. Houston made sense. The Giants were always in there, and then like the Angels were in there early, but I don't think he was ever going to go there. Yeah, I mean, I think it changes things up. As for me, with I do have the Astros being the 1 seed in the AL, the Orioles being the 2. I already said Detroit being the 3. From that, and then Yankees, Mariners, Rangers. As I said, Rays. I have them missing by a game, but I really think that's going to bite me. And then the Blue Jays are the second closest at 85 wins. Rangers making the 3rd seed with 89. For the NL, I have the Dodgers being the 1 seed, Braves being the 2 seed. The Cardinals being the 3 seed, and then the wild card was Phillies at 91 wins, D-backs with 85. I had Padres also with 85, Cubs with 84, Mets with 83, but now I think the Giants have to get in that conversation. I would probably put them in the Padres spot and then have the Padres move out, but man, it is so close. That's a great signing though for the Giants. I think he's going to work out really well there. By the way, the deal is a 2-year, 62 or 63 million. I think I just seen
62.
Deal. So yeah, so massive deal. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm just checking my phone just to make sure that wasn't another notification for that. But yeah, and then I'm giving this. You guys don't have to. My way too early World Series prediction is I have the Braves and the Astros in the World Series, with the Braves winning it once again over the Astros. Again, if you guys have anything to add to that, John,
I have the Orioles and the Braves in the World Series as my early pick.
Okay. Well, I know you hate these. Would you like to add on?
I'm just going to say the Phillies are going to win the World Series. Don't care who you throw at them.
And Bobby, who do you think?
Yeah, I got the Phillies win the whole thing. I also have them having a perfect season. They're going to beat the Pirates. I don't know how they're going to play each other, but it's going to happen. No, that's all I'm saying. It's gonna be some weird rule kink. That's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be weird, but it's gonna happen.
So the Pirates are gonna be 161-1, and the Phillies are going to be 162.
No. The perfect season. No, the perfect seasons are still there. The only loss is gonna be to the Phillies when they somehow play each other in the World Series.
Fair enough.
All right.
I mean, to be fair, if
Bobby's predicting a MLB realignment mid-season.
Hey, listen, if the UFC can figure out who's going to be a champion based on who's going to make the most ticket sales, I think the MLB could do the same thing. Who doesn't want to see the two teams of perfect seasons playing each other? That's all I'm saying.
You're so dumb.
He's not wrong.
This is why you only get the mic once every 25 minutes. Okay.
Hey, wait a minute, Bob. I saw what happened last time your team went to a championship game. Do you really want to relive that?
I refuse to take comments at this present time.
Got him.
If I speak, I am in big trouble.
Got him.
That will wrap this very long episode up. I don't think there's anything else we were looking to add. Yeah. By the way, no Dodgers love for the. I mean, I know we had only 2 actual predictions, but no Dodgers love for the World Series. So we'll see if that pans out. You can follow us on Twitter.
Failures still proven otherwise.
I swear to God, if I get cut off on my outro again, I'm gonna lose it. Follow us on Twitter. BL_down. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch. We will see you in a couple of weeks when the season starts. It should be a good one. I hate everybody that I'm with in this call. We'll see you next time.